That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, very excited here. Like we said in the running back video, this is probably the best week from a waiver wire standpoint that we have had in a very long time. I mean, I think a lot of people currently struggling with rosters, a lot of people that have strong rosters, but maybe want to address some of their depth concerns. This is going to be the week where you can go through, you can pick up some solid options. Now, before we get into the waiver wire, of course, we're going to have to go give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats for people who went down there, subscribed to the channel, dropped a like on the video, and left a comment. Our first comment can be coming out from Charlie Reyes, who says, took your advice and bought Saquon low 2 weeks ago, and now my starting running backs are him and Kamara. My friend, very, very happy for you. In our other comment winners coming out from James, says, I won 10 out of 10 games this week. Also, that hat sounds really good. My friend, congrats. And yeah, y'all just won Fantasy Vlog Network hats. Send me an email ASAP with your physical address so I can get that over to you. And yeah, lastly, please, if y'all want to support the channel, my birthday is on Sunday. If y'all enjoy the fact that we make multiple videos every day, live stream every single day, we've live streamed like 100 days in a row. If you want to support the channel, the number one way you can do it is by going and depositing $10 on Underdog Fantasy, where they have a ton of awesome player prop lines every single week. They also are doing in-season fantasy football best ball drafts, so you can go draft a team and not even have to have that time commitment to set the waiver wire throughout the season. We'll be doing a lot of those in the live stream if you want to get in a draft with us. And if you make a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you get a max deposit bonus. You get daily additional entries until the end of the season to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And Underdog Fantasy said if we get 10,000 signups with promo code FLOCK, they're flying people to Tampa, Florida to go to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game with us and to go to the Florida Flock meetup. Pretty sure they said that, not thinking there was any chance that we hit it. But let's show them how powerful the flock is. Please go support the channel. Nothing supports this channel more. Now let's go through and let's talk about these waiver wire options. In our first guy, not going to be at the wide receiver position. We'll get to the wide receivers after, but I have to fit him in. I have to talk about him. Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance, y'all know this is a quarterback that he was my favorite guy. I mean, we loved him over Justin Fields this offseason. We got so much hate for that. But with Trey Lance, this is literally our brand. So many people in the Flock Dynasty leagues, so many people part of the Dynasty Flock have significantly invested into Trey Lance this offseason for this moment. And now that we can go and pick him up off the waiver wire in our redraft leagues, I'm telling you, we don't necessarily know exactly how long Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out, but I would imagine, based on how Trey Lance is about to dominate the Arizona Cardinals, at least from a fantasy football perspective, but I would not be surprised if Jimmy Garoppolo is not starting another game for this 49ers team throughout the rest of the year here. With Trey Lance, let's not even focus in on what he's going to do for the 49ers, because I think you could sit here and you could argue going back and forth on if Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo is a better starting option for the 49ers, and you could present a strong argument with either case. But let's look at the bullish case for Trey Lance that I have been screaming all offseason now, and we finally get to see it in action. With Trey Lance, this is a quarterback that the 49ers invested into with the 3rd overall pick. They traded the 12th overall pick to future first to go and get Trey Lance at 3 overall. Trey Lance, in my opinion, and please, for the love of God, obviously 90% of the people who watch these videos are older than I am. So y'all probably have a much better perspective on this than I would. But I cannot remember for the life of me ever seeing a quarterback that was drafted inside the top 3 overall picks, going to a situation that is this good his rookie season. Playing alongside George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. I want to include Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, Ayuk looks bad, but it doesn't matter. Brandon Ayuk, throw him on the list. With Kyle Shanahan as your head coach, with the offensive line that San Francisco has, this is going to be a spot that Trey Lance is set up to succeed to the highest degree. And more importantly, from a fantasy football standpoint, why we love Trey Lance and why we were so aggressive with him this offseason is based around his upside running the football. Now, Thomas, please throw up his rushing stats from 2019 in college here to show off exactly what he's capable of. He had over 40 rushing yards and essentially one half of football this past week. Keep in mind, when you're looking at those college rushing stats, Sacks count as negative rushing yards. So those are actually a lot more impressive than you initially think. And it's not like Lance is Lamar Jackson. It's not like he's Kyler Murray. No, he is a massive man. This man is like Josh Allen. He's like Cam Newton. This is someone that can be just getting a ridiculous amount of rushing touchdowns at the goal line as well. Trey Lance going to an elite situation, an elite quarterback prospect with a ton of rushing upside. This is exactly what you look for in fantasy football. I'm picking him up, starting him against the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be a shootout against the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals defense just looked good against the Los Angeles Rams offense. I don't care. We're jamming them in. Now our next player here is going to be a very big surprise for me that we even have to include on this video. It's going to be Laviska Shenault. Now, the reason I'm including him is we actually got some questions in the live streams earlier last week after the Thursday night game saying, Mason, am I adding Laviska Shenault in my league? And I'm sitting here going, what do you mean are you adding Laviska Shenault from the waiver wire? How the hell is he on the waiver wire? I thought that he was rostered in every single league. But apparently, according to Yahoo Fantasy, he's only rostered in 54% of leagues right now. 54% of leagues for Laviska Shenault. So I'd imagine if you're playing in a 12-man league, yeah, he's definitely rostered. But if you're playing in a 10-man format, you may be able to go pick up Laviska Shenault right now, a wide receiver that's currently in year 2. Obviously, you have DJ Chark with the devastating ankle fracture. This will be opening up more targets in this offense. Now, I will say, I think the injury to DJ Chark actually boosts up Marvin Jones slightly more than it does Laviska Shenault. If you look at where both of these wide receivers are getting targeted on the football field, I mean, Marvin Jones is that deeper threat where Laviska Shenault was getting targeted closer to the line of scrimmage. I mean, if you look at where DJ Chark is also running his routes, I mean, he looks like a lot more of Marvin Jones than he does with Laviska, but regardless, Laviska Shenault this past week looked fantastic. He had 7 targets in this offense. He had 110 total yards. We know he will be someone getting some random touches out of the backfield as well. 6 receptions to go along with this. Keep in mind, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is still a rookie here. Laviska Shenault's in year 2. You should expect that both of these players are nothing close to their top potential. I think that these players will continue to get better as the season goes on. Now, they get to go up against the Houston Texans twice a year. They get to go up against the Tennessee Titans twice a year, both some of the worst defenses in the NFL. So I think going with Laviska here is a no-brainer. I'm so surprised that he's available on any waiver wire. And another player that, I mean, I was saying was being overdrafted in fantasy drafts, yet I have no idea how he's on the waiver wire right now. Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is currently rostered in 38% of leagues. Please let me know what leagues Darnell Mooney is not rostered in. Of course, I'm not playing in an 8-man format. I'm not playing in a 10-man league. I exclusively play in like 12-man league where, I mean, you're going through and also rostering like 20-plus players. So, I mean, none of these guys are ever going to be on the waiver wire for me. But Darnell Mooney here coming off a monstrous performance where you're looking at 7 targets, not that much volume, but we know, I mean, with the Chicago Bears, this wasn't a game that Justin Fields was throwing the ball 30-plus times. 5 receptions, 135 total yards at the same time. With Darnell Mooney, this is almost what you should come to expect, as in this is a wide receiver that is going to be running routes deeper down the field. So with Mooney, don't expect that we're going to get this every single week. He's very much a boom or a bust wide receiver. Like, you're not going to be surprised at all if he comes out and sees 2 points in any given matchup. Now, with that being said, I think this will be an offense that's trending in the right direction if Justin Fields can continue to develop. And at the same time, with Darnell Mooney, while I may not have liked him in fantasy drafts, I didn't like taking him in like the 8th round of fantasy drafts. I'm completely fine if we're picking him up for free off the waiver wire. I guess a lot of people got burnt by Justin Fields a week ago. Now, I want to point out, it was against the Detroit Lions. So if you can pick up Darnell Mooney and then you can flip him in a package to get a slight upgrade elsewhere, I think that's going to be something we're looking to do. But we're about to hit the bye weeks. If we're hitting the bye weeks, we're going to need some more depth options. Darnell Mooney can potentially be one of those players. Now, our next guy will be for very deep formats, a lot deeper than what you're talking about with someone like Darnell Mooney, a lot deeper than what you're talking about with someone like Laviska Shenault. This is Kadarius Toney. Here with Kadarius Toney, he comes out, and of course, we needed to address the fact that Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton both missed this game, which is why, even with it being a tough matchup, I wanted to be going through and playing Kenny Golladay in every single league that we had him, based on the fact that we thought he was going to be the only one getting targeted in this offense. Well, we were wrong in that Kadarius Toney comes out. Keep in mind, this is someone that dealt with a multitude of injuries. He's also on the COVID list throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. Here, Kadarius Toney comes and gets 9 targets, 6 receptions, 78 receiving yards. Now, I will say, I wasn't a massive fan of Kadarius Toney coming out of Florida, but still, with that being said, with Kadarius Toney here, this is a wide receiver that was drafted in the first round. I mean, he has the team investment there where you'd imagine this coaching staff wants to go through and they want to get him involved. I would imagine that they at least had a decent thought process on where they were going to be implementing him into the offense if they decided to draft him. I mean, in pretty much the middle of the first round this past season. And if we're seeing him get 9 targets in this game, I mean, considering the fact that Darius Slayton, this coaching staff really is not invested into in the slightest, as well as Sterling Shepard is a wide receiver that was drafted in the second round back in 2015, but still, I mean, that was a long time ago. The contract doesn't necessarily indicate that he needs to be seeing a ridiculous amount of targets. I think you could easily see Kadarius Toney just becoming an every down player. Also, both Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, they were ruled out way before Sunday, so maybe they're not even close. Maybe get another week without them, and Kadarius Toney can continue to expand his role in his offense. Okay, so now our next wide receiver will be Randall Cobb, another very, very deep option where he's currently only rostered in 6% of leagues. And he comes out, and I'm not going to lie, this is usually the spot where you don't want to go overboard with this pickup. Like with Cobb, I think this is more so just that deeper format. If you're going to be desperate for possibly someone that you need to play at an extra flex spot during the bye weeks, because he does only have 6 targets in this matchup. And this is usually a good stance to go through and have if you're looking at these players coming off the waiver wire. The guy getting 6 targets, 6 receptions, 69 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So yeah, he scored a touchdown on 1 out of every 3 targets that he had. I mean, he caught the ball on every target that he had. So you would much rather see like the Kadarius Toney line here, where Kadarius Toney's coming out on the other hand, and he gets 9 targets, 6 receptions, 78 receiving yards, where you're saying, well, yeah, I mean, Randall Cobb crushes him in production. Randall Cobb, I mean, pretty much drops an extra, 7-8 points on him. But with Kadarius Toney getting 9 targets, I think there's room to improve for Toney. With Cobb, this is more so his highest point that you're probably going to see all year. But it would make sense that it would take a couple of weeks for Randall Cobb to get going, and that this is a wide receiver that was a late addition. And I understand that Randall Cobb does have that chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people maybe expected it to happen right away. Keep in mind, he doesn't have the chemistry with the coaching staff. Mike McCarthy was the head coach last time Randall Cobb was in Green Bay. So there is a case to be made that maybe Cobb is just someone that was taking a little bit longer to actually get implemented into this offense. Maybe it was someone that was taking a little bit longer to actually get going. Obviously, Davante Adams just getting a significant amount of the volume here every single week will cap the ceiling of Cobb. And I want to address one thing because I know we're going to get these comments down below, but we're going to say, well, Mason, Marquez Valdes-Scantling was inactive. With Marquez Valdes-Scantling being inactive, that has no impact whatsoever on Randall Cobb. They're playing literally 2 completely different positions. I mean, I know technically they're both listed as wide receivers, and I know from a fantasy football standpoint that looks like the same. If you look at how they're implemented into this offense, they're 2 different positions entirely. I mean, I don't necessarily think we need to be changing our expectations for Randall Cobb with MVS being in or out of the lineup. So don't go through and talk about that. MVS is that primary field stretcher that's going to be creating space underneath for wide receivers like Randall Cobb to run out of the slot, to run crossing routes, to be able to just draw those targets. And I mean, they don't necessarily have to deal with that safety level attention. Now, a more appealing option over Randall Cobb, in my opinion, is going to be a Jamison Crowder. Now, here with Jamison Crowder, this is someone rostered in 20% of leagues. And of course, he is someone that's playing on one of the worst offenses in the NFL with the New York Jets here. I will say, however, I mean, Jamison Crowder is the profile of a wide receiver where you could easily see him being productive on even the worst offense in the NFL, and that some of the wide receivers that you really want to be worried about if they have really bad quarterback play are the guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, are the guys that are going to be field stretching and they're not going to see a significant amount of volume. However, they have to rely on the efficiency from a yards per target standpoint, because if they're having to rely on that yards per target, then all of a sudden you need an efficient passing quarterback. You need someone that can hit you deep. Jamison Crowder is the exact opposite of that. He comes back after this injury and he automatically leads this team in targets. And it would make sense if you're just looking at how this offensive line and Zach Wilson are playing right now. You'd imagine that this coaching staff wants to go through and prioritize getting the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands ASAP. And Jamison Crowder this game, keep in mind, did go to overtime, so it's a little bit skewed with the amount of minutes that he actually played. But he did have 9 targets, 7 receptions, 61 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown as well. So the long-term upside is kind of capped, as you would expect. Elijah Moore potentially comes in and expands his role in this offense as we get further on in the season. But at the same time, you could possibly make the argument that Zach Wilson improves, as that's really the only option with Zach Wilson here in this offense. And that does go through and just raise your overall expectations on how many points can be found. So I think with Crowder, I mean, this can be someone that you can expect to be possibly a wide receiver 3, but you could easily use a wide receiver 3 when we're about to come on the bye weeks, and obviously there are a considerable amount of injuries. Now let's go right back to a rookie. He didn't lead his team in targets straight up, but he tied for the lead for his team in targets with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay, so with St. Brown, obviously this wasn't the easiest matchup going up against the Chicago Bears. Here he had 8 targets, 6 receptions, 70 receiving yards. And with Brown here, this is a wide receiver that, going back to it, he's a rookie. I mean, you're not expecting a 4th round rookie to come in and right away start producing in week 1. Keep in mind that Justin Jefferson took until week 3 to start producing his rookie season. T. Higgins took until week 3 to start producing his rookie season. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think we can safely say, he's nowhere near as talented as those other rookie wide receivers back in 2020. I think that this is someone that's understandable if he took until week 4. I think this could be someone that just continues to expand his role in the offense. Now, of course, TJ Hawkinson is going to maintain as that number 1 option for Jared Goff, as well as DeAndre Swift out of the backfield as well. But still, nobody's going to be surprised if St. Brown, out of the wide receivers in this grouping, I would guess you could make the argument this is potentially the worst group of wide receivers in the entire NFL. Nobody's going to be surprised if Brown rises up to the number 1 spot. Now, our next player will be over at the tight end position. I know technically not a wide receiver, but we have to talk about him. Dawson Knox. And my God, with Dawson Knox, we had so many questions coming out in the live stream on Sunday morning and Saturday night saying, oh, should I start Dawson Knox? Should I go with Tyler Conklin? Well, I told everybody to go through and play Tyler Conklin and to bench Dawson Knox because you were looking at him and you were saying, well, this is a player that had like 12 targets and 2 receiving touchdowns up until this past week. And I was saying that's not necessarily sustainable production, but he comes out and he crushes this week. And what I love to see is the usage that he has in this offense. I mean, he had 8 targets this week, 5 receptions, 37 receiving yards, and of course, why everybody's excited, the 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, as of now, Dawson Knox is like the tight end 6, tight end 7 in fantasy. I will say this is going to regress. You cannot expect this going forward. He will be a low-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2. He is someone that you can definitely pick up, definitely should be picking up. He's only rostered in 47% of leagues. But I want to point out the fact that so far he has had 4 touchdowns on only 20 targets. That is not a sustainable rate. I promise you, you're going to see him regress to the mean there just slightly. But still, based on the offense that he's playing in, based on the idea that we know with these tight ends, they tend not to break out until year 3 in the NFL. This was someone that came into the 2019 NFL draft class alongside A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf out of Ole Miss. So, of course, it would be understandable why he would go under the radar just slightly if at Ole Miss he was overshadowed by some of the best wide receivers in college football. Still went in round 3 to the Buffalo Bills. Clearly an every down player for them. And I mean, maybe continues to get better, but I would expect the touchdown efficiency to definitely go down. Now, thank you so much for checking out the video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Make sure you drop that like, subscribe, leave a comment to get entered to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And of course, my birthday's this Sunday. Go through and sign up for Underdog Fantasy, promo code FLOCK. Support the channel. Let's get to 10,000. Let's show them that we can do the impossible with our signups. And that way we can fly some people down to Tampa, Florida to go to that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game with us, go to the Florida Flock meetup. That'd be a lot of fun. If we could do that by my birthday, that would be ridiculous, so we could get that all set up. So thank you so much for everybody being a part of the Flock, supporting the channel. Really hope you have a great day, and I hope I see you in the live stream tonight.